All right. This is the beginning of the recording for Saturday, November 16th.
Mm.
And it's 3 minutes past the hour of 9 o'clock here on the west coast of Turtle Island. And I, of course, am Dean Walker, the guy who shepherds this little outpost in the interwebs called Living Resilience. And this is, of course, the absolutely bonkers, crazy idea of offering a year-long course called Islands of Sanity in a Mad World. And that year-long course is now 3 months into itself. And we are having on the first and third Saturdays of each month, excuse me, 2 1-hour classes. And this is the first of the 2 hour classes that starts at 9 a.m. Pacific time.
Mm.
And it is a focus on the book club selection for whatever chapter of this year we're in. This is the first chapter. And we are getting close to the conclusion of our study of climate cure. Well, I'd like to speak with those of you who are bold enough to get here as often as you do in live presence, and especially you, Allison, whom I'll introduce and ask you to introduce yourself in just a moment. As you and I have spoken, and you so graciously reminded me today that you've already been through a book club experience with Climate Cure by Jack Adam Weber. We will be talking about that today, and I believe we're going to do one more session to really wrap up, give people who've been trying to catch up in these 3 months now that we've had sessions. Um, I'd like to wrap it up in a way that particularly focuses on what we'll start today, which is about grief and shadow, the two largest elements that I think he covers. Now, that's contentious because there's so many large elements that he brings to us.
Yeah.
I'm thinking right now about his extensive experience with and facilitation and discernment with matters of trauma. I think he does a beautiful job of bridging us into those realms. So, in any case, one more coming of that. And we will be opening up into the material that we'll cover today in Climate Cure in just a few moments. But, I'd like to also open up uh, what seems to be really the trend, and I'm very glad that this is the trend, where it seems like we open up a flow in our connection with one another and the topics that we open up together in this first session, this first 1 hour session on the third Saturday in November of 2024. And we often then will just pick up where we left off in the first hour. We'll pick it up again in the second hour and really expand it and deepen it in my experience. So previews of coming attractions, we're going to be doing that. And I would very much like to check in with one another. I'd be very curious how y'all are doing. I think there was some big stuff happening in the USA in the last week. I'm not sure what it was, but it had something to do with politics. And anyway, we'll get there. Um, and what I'd like to do first is introduce a new face to our screen. Um, Allison, Allison Frank.
Right.
So welcome here, Allison. We've had this kind of interesting kind of start-stop way of connecting for quite a while now, and it's every time we connect, I find myself just really added to, contributed to by where we go in just our simplest sharing can be really nourishing or really opening for me. So I'm wanting to introduce you that way and really thank you for that. And acknowledge you for, you've been through a lot, and I don't know how much you want to share. You're certainly welcome to be as self-disclosing as you would like, and there's no pressure for that in any way. But I will say that just it's been remarkable to track with you through some of your experience recently. It's been very moving, and I'm, Allison, I don't know, I don't remember if you've had this exposure to something that happens for me a lot. Really, at the center of this work is, to me, is to reopen my connection with my own soul, with my own feeling body, and to be able to find a center there again, which has been long ago taken away or knocked away or dissolved by the culture we live in. So I've really designed this work for us all to be able to do that in our own ways. I'm just going to mute. There we go. Mute Richard. Um, so what just happened is I was slowing myself down, slowing down my thinking and my breathing and my speaking as I'm doing that just a little bit now. And this is not meant to be performative in any way. It's meant to be me just telling you how I do it when I'm doing it. And that, in a way, brings us an invitation to bring more coherence to each other and to this circle. I find that immensely valuable to be shared with, like, how do you bring yourself back to center? How do you deepen your presence volitionally in just a few moments so that you can be more present and more presenced in a given circle moment? So, thank you for letting me just take that little sidetrack to let y'all know what I was doing. And in just describing and acknowledging my times with you in the past few weeks and so on, Allison, I just wanted to give a sense of why I was being moved and what that was about. And I'm wondering, Allison, if you would just mind introducing yourself a little bit and you know,
I'm happy to, and I'm happy to be here because I actually need community around climate change. So my story, I'm going to try and make it brief so that you get an overall view. But I was in the hurricane in Asheville. Um, it's way worse than it's being reported. So I was alone in the dark without power or water or Wi-Fi for 17 days. Um, the city wasn't responsive. We did not know what was going on. It, terrifying. Like there's no language for it. But what I was doing was going down to the creek and getting water to flush my toilet because we didn't have water. And I lived in suburbia, so you can't poop in your front yard. And so about, I don't know, a friend of mine called me. She was living in another state and she called me up about the 17th day and said, "You have to get out of there. The water's contaminated." I put a plea out on Facebook. A friend of mine responded. Well, a lot of people responded, but there were only, I wasn't willing to go to Atlanta or Salt Lake City or, a big city. So a friend of mine had a friend in Woodstock, New York, and he was part of the Buddhist community. And she said, he will take you in. He's looking for a roommate. So I packed up my car. I took only my clothes and my medicine. I left everything I owned. I left 25 years of accumulated furniture, mementos, everything. I got in my car and drove to New York. I get there, I meet this guy. Um, he was pretty iffy, but 5 days after I was there, I got sepsis. I I got sick from the contaminated water that I was hauling up from the creek. I was in the hospital for a week. I almost died. Um, that was, you know, like each aspect of this is its own trauma.
Mm.
So I was displaced. I get to a place where I don't feel safe. Then I almost die. Then I get out of the hospital and my roommate tells me I'm a liability because I got sick. He didn't like that I got sick. And then a few days after that, he tried to sexually assault me. So I called a friend of mine and she got me a hotel room in New York. So I'm alone in New York and I'm homeless. And I reached out to Dean because I'd been in the group with Dean before. And I just reached out to people that I knew would understand what trauma meant in a climate crisis. And a lot of people helped, but one of my clients um owns this cabin in Yucca Valley where I am right now. So she said, you can go live in my cabin. So I got in my car and I drove 7 days to California and I got here Tuesday. Um, so I'm unpacking. Like I actually didn't think you could go through this kind of trauma. Like I can't articulate what's going on in my body because it it doesn't have anything to do with anything I've ever experienced. I don't have a point of reference for this kind of post-traumatic stress disorder. And I mean, I feel kind of safe, but and I know some of the people here. There's a building here called the Integratron, which is a sacred dome in the middle of the desert, and they give sound baths here. And so all those people that work there, they're my clients. So that's why I chose this place. Like I actually knew people, and I mean, I have to have a community. Like going through this kind of trauma in Asheville by myself really brings home the fact that we cannot pretend anymore that we're going to be okay just living in our little houses by ourselves. We really need community. This stuff is like now it's every day. And just an aside, the place I left in New York, Woodstock/Ulster County, is on fire now. If I had stayed there, I would have been in another climate disaster.
Wow.
Okay. And 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 I left this out too. While I was driving to New York, Hurricane Milton was hitting Florida. My entire family lives in Tampa. So I'm in a hotel room watching the mayor of Tampa say that if you don't evacuate, you're going to die. So I've had these multiple climate crises happen to me personally within the course of a month. And I wanted to do this with you guys and with Dean just because no one, no, none of my friends, unless you went through, like, people are like, well, you're okay now, right? And it's like, no, I'm not close to okay. There's so much adrenaline in my system. I could probably fuel Elon Musk's, Starlinks. I mean, it's like I don't. I mean, I want to say this. Any feedback that you have to give me is appreciated. It's like I don't know what to do with this, and I'm too stressed out to grieve. Like today, like I can feel the adrenaline leaving my body. And I'm wondering what my own personal collapse is going to look like. But I'm 72 years old. I'm driving like a bat out of hell to California. I mean, I can't believe I did this. So, survival's an interesting concept. And I had a therapist once that told me humans are hardwired to survive. So I figure I want to use this experience to help other people.
Mhm.
And the women on Environmental Coffee House, I don't know if you know what that is, but I'm going to be on their show next week
Mhm.
and talk about the reason, like, this is end stage capitalism. The reason this happened in Asheville is because they were told not to build where they built. Like, this didn't have to happen. And now the water's not safe to drink, but they're lowering the standards of the water safety today. They're doing that today so that they can bring tourists back. So there are all kinds of levels. There's personal, there's regional, there's spiritual. I mean, this is hitting every single thing. But the money part is like it's crazy that it's still the forefront of everything. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Well, Allison, thank you for this layer of introduction. I really appreciate it. And I have a suggestion for us all. Um, these are impossible short class sessions that we spend together on these first and third Saturdays. Um, and while I've got some regret about that, we need to, I need to just do something about it because what makes it feel short right now is that I want to experience more together of what you've started with us here, Allison. It's just there's so much in what you're sharing. I barely think maybe I could let in 10% of it, just the sheer volume and depth of and impact of what you're sharing. So I'd like to suggest for you, if you'd like, Allison, and for all of us, to just do a very brief, simple as it gets breathing practice, and also to shift ourselves as best we can for the rest of this session. We'll take a half-hour break, and then there'll be another 1 hour session after that. And for all of this time, I would suggest that we do our best to do what I'm doing right now, which is remembering to slow down, just ever so slightly shifting the pace of what I'm saying. Saying the same stuff, but I'm slowing it down a little bit. It's a bit more breathing time. And so I would recommend, best we can, doing that together as we share for the rest of this session and next. And this breathing is very, very simple. And I'd like everybody to do it at their own pace, but just keep this cycle going best you can that I'm about to describe. So we'll do this for about 2 minutes. And what it is I think we've done it before, perhaps in the very first session. It's 4-7-8 breathing. And that means that I'm just about to do a demonstration for you. And I'm going to be inhaling for a count of 4. I'll be then holding my breath for a count of 7. And then I'll be exhaling through pursed lips for a count of 8. And by the way, if possible, if you have open nose at this moment, you can do your inhale through the nose for a count of 4, hold for a count of 7, exhale through pursed lips for a count of 8. So again, I'll just do that so that you can see me doing it, and then we'll just go right into a series. So in 4, hold 7, pursed lips 8, exhale 8. Any questions? So please do as many as you will in, just a little over a minute, and I'll flag you, and you'll just, in a relaxed way, finish your last round when you see the flag. And here we go. 4-7-8. Okay, take a few moments to finish whatever round you're on. And the last thing I remember you saying, Allison, which again, thank you for sharing about what you've been going through for a while now, for a number of weeks now. The last thing I remember you sharing was, you've got too much turbulence in your system, too much adrenaline in your system to even think about grieving, to think about settling into some of these larger scale elements or waves that come through us when they do, but they take a certain capacity. And what tends to happen if we're in a traumatized state or we've been through very challenging or even traumatic circumstances is whatever capacity we have gets washed out, gets blown out. And it really takes some conscious reassembling and discernment to be able to bring that capacity back and maybe even expand it a bit. So I wish that for you today. These are just the simplest practices that we might do together with you today. And if those simple practices, or what hopefully you'll experience some of the coherence that I experience every time this small group gets together, there's almost immediately an atmosphere of coherence that's very helpful for me to expand my own capacity. And I hope that that will be useful for you as well. Is there anybody who would just like to share about where we are right now, what you've been experiencing, what perhaps reflects on something that Allison said, and this isn't quite a check-in yet, but Richard, please.
Okay. Yeah, actually, Allison, I have a question. So your house is still there, but you just can't be there because the infrastructure is, I mean, the water and electricity and all kinds of infrastructure is pretty destroyed. Is that what the situation is?
The house in Asheville?
Yeah, the house in Asheville, you can't go back because of the infrastructure problems, or
Well, okay, so my house didn't get destroyed.
yeah,
Um, there is still not clean water.
right, right, yeah,
And okay, so the thing with me was that I was alone.
yeah.
I was alone in the dark for 17 days. Every
Wow.
person I knew
Yikes.
was triggered. So this wasn't like I could call up a friend and say I need help. The the magnitude
Hmm.
of the cognitive dissonance that happened to all of us at the same time made it impossible to help each other.
Wow.
So, and I'm just going to be perfectly honest. I mean, I feel like this happened to me for a reason, so I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. So I was sitting in my house on the 17th day thinking I'm just going to kill myself
Yeah.
because I wasn't resourced at all. And it made it through the news cycle. Oh, there was a hurricane. Oh, now there's another hurricane. Like, so people were just moving like outside the region. They were just moving forward. I was alone in a
Yeah.
dangerous situation,
Right.
and I did not, the city was not providing any, the National Guard didn't show up, FEMA didn't show up.
Huh.
Um, there were some churches handing out water. It was very weird. So the store I worked at was under 5 feet of toxic mud. Like this wasn't just
Wow. Yes.
like the city is gone. The
Yeah.
region's gone. Um,
Yeah.
40% of the trees are gone. It's a national forest.
Jesus Christ.
Like whole cities are underwater.
Yeah.
So like there isn't anything to go back to.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Like real estate, like I have a friend that owns a real estate company. She's driving an Amazon truck. Like the jobs are gone.
Yeah.
So just for the sake of moving this forward in a world picture, they said $56 billion worth of damage. They're not going to rebuild this region.
Hmm.
It's over. So, I mean, I knew, like, if you were there, you would understand. If you looked at, like, it looked like a bomb went off.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Wow.
they're so, everybody I know is leaving. There's like, no, you can't stay there.
Wow. Yeah, I get it. Okay.
Did that
Yeah.
answer your question? I mean, it's,
Oh yeah. Wow. Damn. I
Yeah.
mean, I just can't. I mean, my heart goes out to you and all those people. I lived there myself, a long time ago, but I lived there myself, and I know what the area is like, and that's got to be really heartbreaking. Jesus.
well, I mean, you don't, this is I guess this is what Mother Nature looks like when she gets really angry. She's like, Nothing's off the table.
Right.
I'm going after all of you."
Well, I know nobody in that area could ever even imagine this happening in that area, right?
That's why 70,000 people moved there in the past 3 years because that was the place on the East Coast everybody
Right.
thought was safe.
Right. Yeah.
So we all got excreted.
Wow. That's pretty crazy. Thank you. Thanks. Hmm. Hmm.
And Janet, I'm curious if you have anything that you'd like to either say or ask or presence yourself in any way, because I'd fairly soon like to get to some brief check-ins, but I don't want to rush this part. This may be the whole time
Right.
we spend together in exactly this way, and that's
Right.
completely fine.
Yep.
But if I'm just curious because I've heard your voice the least in the last few moments, so do you have anything you'd like to add?
Um, Allison, my heart is just aching for you.
Hmm.
Um, it's like you lost the life you had, and in your attempts to get grounded in another one, it feels to me like you'd land somewhere and there'd be another earthquake and it would get ripped away. And there you are scrambling over a moving earth, and you think you've got something again, and poof, it's gone. Um, I just, it's all I can, I ache for you. Um, and I hope that you can find some stability, hopefully where you are, and from there sort out a path forward, whatever that looks like, and to be so alone handling that. My one experience of significant trauma is living next door to people who decided to harass and threaten me, and I tried to live there for several years, and finally I was so scared I just had to move. And so I'm on a dead end road now in the country, and the two houses past me are weekend people because I'm in a tourist area. And every time, and I'm way off the road on a hill, and every time a car went by, I'd panic because I lived for so many years being afraid.
Jesus.
And which isn't what, well, maybe it's a bit of what you're going through. It settles into your cells and into your body. And it took me a while, and that's nowhere near um, what what you're going through. So um, um, that's where I'm at. Actually, for my check-in, that's where I'm at. too, is this sense of and it's been what's been going on since the election is the ground is moving. Um and and nothing, and it feels to me like it will keep moving. And I know I keep saying this, but I just hurt for you. Um, and I truly hope you can somehow. I don't know. I mean, if you need someone to reach out to, I'm here. Even if it's just um, like middle of the night email. Oh my God, I'm having a panic attack. I'm often up at night. Um,
Thank you.
or through Messenger. Just um, that
Well,
I know. Go ahead.
it's just like I need a climate community because people that don't pay attention to what's going on, they just don't want to hear it. It's
Yeah.
I think I'll be okay, but I want I want to be able to talk about it because it's coming. We're in it. It's
Yeah.
not like it's someplace out in the future anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm in an odd situation because I live in Canada, in Ontario, and it hasn't come here yet except for unexpected heavy rainfall and unexpected hot, dry spells. Not anything close to what you're um, living with. And so I said this last time, I have a bit of this outsider looking in kind of feeling. Um, and it's hard enough for me. And I also, like you, I'm very aware that the climate situation is live and happening. And anyway, I have had an experience going on that is kind of speaks to that, but I'll stop for now, um, so we can do our check-in.
Uh,
Allison, is there more that you wanted to say in response, or are you good for now?
You know what? There's a lot to say. I'm good. I want your group to like proceed, in
Yeah.
its normal pattern.
Yeah, but please don't concern yourself with that. I know I mentioned that because I was trying to hold that thread, but other than checking in, I'm not sure that there is much to bring in and be sure we cover or something like that. There's nothing more important that we need to get to. So I just want y'all to know that. And I'm sincere when I'm asking each of you, if I haven't heard from you for a while, is there something current for you in this part of the flow of our session? And so, Janet has just responded to you, and I'm just curious if, as you look now differently, is there anything that you want to say in response, or are you complete for the moment?
Me?
Yes.
The one thought that has occurred to me through this entire journey, and I'm curious to see how you respond to this, because the political thing in and of itself is terrifying. But when you go through what I went through, um, the political stuff pales in comparison.
Mhm.
And I don't want it to sound like I'm trivializing it, but I do believe with all my heart that it doesn't matter who's the president, they're going to be dealing with climate change.
Mhm.
oh yeah.
Like it's rolling out and all this drama, I don't know what that is, but and I'm sure this is a result of my personal trauma, but it just doesn't seem important.
Mhm.
So I do invite all of you, if you think I'm sounding like nuts, please tell me, because I need some feedback, because I can't be objective about me at this moment.
Hmm.
Yeah. Thank you, Allison and Richard.
Yeah, I do have a response to that, and that is, actually, right before you said that, I was sitting here thinking that this crisis we're all entering into is like it's multi-level. It's actually happening in every sphere of life, and that it's all interconnected somehow. And so what I was thinking is that the political we're about to enter this political storm or this political madness or whatever you want to call it, and that's to me that's like a reflection of the what's going on in the natural world too. The natural world is going crazy, and we're getting this really intensifying climate change, but there's also intensifying weird political shit going on and all kinds of changes, and I think they're just interconnected. I mean, what you went through is certainly more intense and crazy and severe than the short-term political situation, but just the big picture political situation is really going off the rails. I mean, it's getting pretty crazy. So I think they're, in a way, one and the same process. I don't know how to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Ooh. Um, really, it just couldn't be more on track as far as I'm concerned. How this session is going is such a in real time, in real life, and in real sharing in a coherent circle. This is all this work has ever meant to be, is a place where people can come and feel at least enough safety, enough stability, enough coherence with one another to be able to take a renewed
Hmm.
look at how am I really doing now? Because I don't want to put words in your mouth, Allison, but it seems like you were expressing some things that I certainly have experienced in my own life when I'm in the midst of an experience of feeling like I'm in some sort of trauma blender, and it's just I can't find my center to save my life, literally. And then I try and piece it back together alone, and it's just excruciating to try and do it alone. The pain, the discord, the so I'm just remembering some of those earlier moments in my life that I'm talking about. And it's my tears right now are actually of joy, oddly enough. The joy of being able to speak about this bizarre experience that I've had waves of in my life that may be similar to what Allison's been sharing with us. And to be able to be heard and have space held for me to be able to share that is precious. Even in just these few moments of being able to say, I have had myself completely scattered, shattered, and scattered, and in pain and in a loneliness and aloneness that I had never experienced before. And to be able to find a pocket of humanity with some amount of stability, some amount of coherence. And God, if I could, I mean, the ultimate is if there's some soul present, some human soul, some somatic, some deeply connected with bodies and earth and the sweat and blood and lovely tears of human life being shared in that circle, that is deeply nourishing. And so I'm
Yeah.
pausing here very deliberately to let this sink in because I don't know anything more important in my experience here. I don't want to put words in anyone else's mouth. I'd love to hear your experience, but just my recounting of these precious moments, and I am deeply grateful that I've had these pockets of human beings to meet with, circles to be able to sit in, space to be held for me. to be able to experience that coherence, to be able to experience that opportunity to just fully be for a few moments and not have to be guarded, not have to try to figure out how to survive into tomorrow. I can let that go and bask for a moment in presence and in coherence. Is this communicating, and is it sparking anything for
Oh,
anyone
yeah.
else? Okay.
Sure.
Is it sparking enough for a share, or are you good for the moment?
I just want to say that I now go, oh, it's Saturday, in a chance to find reality in the midst of, man, I have stuff going on, but it feels like if I go, that sharing it in other places, there's a more superficial, oh gee, isn't that difficult kind of feeling, and you just want to be heard on a different level.
Mhm.
I mean, not that someone can fix it, but just it's like you're saying, Dean, that suffering that's a bit lower, or the fear or whatever that's in the lower level, that can just be, um, is just such a precious gift.
Mhm.
Some of the I've told you that I'm in some newsletter writing groups, and in one of the um, coaches set up the day after the election a sort of spontaneous, woke up feeling devastated, and set up a Zoom call for writers, to just show up. And she went through some embodying practices and gave us prompts to write, because she teaches writing from an embodied place.
Mhm.
And that was like this. It was a place to go, to be around other people on Zoom who were also struggling. Um, and just any rate, so yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Dean, I just want to say I thought you expressed everything you were saying very, very well, and really just movingly. I mean, no, I'll just leave it at that. I mean, you described what you were saying extremely well, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. Um, there was a small piece of what we've all, sorry. There was a small piece of what we've all shared and spoken about in these past, I don't know, 50 minutes or whatever, that I wanted to be sure to underscore it or highlight it. And that is, please use this space to put out the word for any sort of connection that you might be wanting to have or create. And for some people,
Huh. Huh.
hello there,
Hey.
Mike. Hi, we're kind of more than midstream, and so I hope you can just kind of bear with, coming right in and paddling with us.
Yeah, sorry I'm late.
Got it. Okay. Um, so right now I'm just recounting a little piece that we've covered a lot of ground, extraordinary ground in our time together, and I wanted to reiterate just how essential it is for my experience of doing this work, this inner work of collapse, is that there are certain elements we must do alone, but the vast majority of it really, really soars when we get to do it with others. Whether that's a one-on-one buddy situation, whether it's an offline small grouping that meets because we have this similar interest or this similar focus and interest in expanding that together. Um, there are a number of ways in which people can connect. And thank goodness there are, because these 2 1-hour sessions go by so darn quickly. So please use the chat here. And I would ask that people reach out, put out the requests for what you want. I would also request if you would get yourself into the community space. There's a Islands of Sanity coursework area in this thing that we call the Living Resilience online community space. It's a Mighty Networks kind of environment, and that's where the course material is for Islands of Sanity in a Mad World. If anybody's having any trouble with what's he talking about, what, where, I don't get it, please just send me an email, or let's set up something before we hang up, this session or next, and let's talk, and I'll get you oriented to where to find all that stuff. And one part of that stuff is a private, not big Facebook, creepy kind of all of our information being sequestered away and all that. This is just a private little chat area where you could connect with others if you'd like to there. And of course, you're welcome to share. You can message somebody directly in the chat here and say, I'd like to connect with you about such and such. Would that be okay? And you can arrange that for yourselves. I would also ask that people who are really wanting something, and if somebody else that you happen to reach out to says, I think I don't really have the space or the interest, please don't take it personally. This is really just choices that we each will make about how much space we have, how much interest we have, or how much affinity we have at any given time. And that's just a fluid thing. So there will be certain pockets that'll work well for us to find a buddy, to find a small group to connect with about the topic of interest for you. Probably enough said. Um, hmm. I'm just stopping now to make sure that I say whatever little essential pieces might be there for this session, which will end in about 10 minutes, a little less. We'll take a half-hour break and we'll come back for the second session. Hmm. Yeah, and I'm also just going to reiterate what I just said in a slightly different way for the people who watch only the recordings of these sessions, because their life circumstances don't let them be here. I hope that you will also put messages into the online community space, the Islands of Sanity in a Mad World, place where you can leave messages for one another. Or if nowhere else, you could leave it right out in the main feed that you find when you first come into that online community space. So there are a number of people who are watching the recordings and would undoubtedly resonate with a lot of what we've already spoken about and shared today. So I would just ask that you reach out to whatever degree you are needing, wanting that, or wanting to offer some of your own presence to others. Um, I'm also looking right now, Mike, how to kind of catch you up. It's been a it's kind of a extraordinary journey we've been on in a relatively short time here for me. Um, we've welcomed Allison, excuse me, Allison, a relative newcomer to this particular space. We've been in other spaces together, Allison and I, and your story, Allison, has been just an extraordinary journey for me to just be witness to. And And so, Mike, there's been a lot of Allison sharing her
Mm.
experience of being in the hurricane, and I'm sorry, the name of that hurricane because there were so many in a short time.
It was Helene.
Helene,
Right.
yeah.
And so from Helene and then a journey that has taken you first to New York and then westward. So you're now in California, and thank you again for sharing that. What I think you did, in my experience, is you opened up some of the inarguable evidence of what could be called collapse. It could be called predicament. And there's a very remarkable mentor of mine. It calls it the the long dark. That we are entering the long dark, and these times tend to be uh, influenced by waves of trauma, of disruption, of great destruction, and also extraordinary opportunities for people to bring out the best in themselves. And I've already experienced both of those waves in abundance in the sharing that we've just had this morning. So we've got about 5 minutes left. Mike, is there anything you'd like to say to just kind of present yourself? And we never got around to check-ins for ourselves, so hopefully you're going to be here for the second round, and we can all check in briefly. Finally, is there anything you'd like to just say to present yourself?
Well, I guess I'll just save it for the next round.
Okay.
Sorry, I got the start time wrong. But I have been looking and thinking about a lot of things, and um, I'll probably go into that in more detail later or somewhere in the chats.
Okay. All right. Great. We'll look forward to that at the startup of the next session, which will be here on the West Coast. That'll be 10:30 Pacific time. And so adjust it to your time zone, whatever that is. Is there anyone else that it feels like I would like to just have us close this particular envelope intentionally. We're going to be reopening it, but I really get a sense that we're going to shift levels a bit in the next one. And so I would ask that each of us just take a moment to feel into your own system and is there anything that you would like to share with us that you're landing with after this time together?
I'm thinking, Allison, from what you said, that the chaos that's coming is coming alive for me. That it's not an out there in the future, in a book, in a podcast. It's alive and real and here, and I'm getting chills. I'm thinking about what's coming and how unprepared most people are, like just not ready for. And so, anyway, thank you. If anything, your experience is a real wake up call. If I,
Yeah, I basically ditto everything she just said, and also yeah, what you've been through, Allison, really does bring it home in a new way. I mean, I write about this stuff all the time, and I'm talking to people about it all the time, and yet, you're living it totally, and you told us all about it, and man, yeah, it's getting crazier and crazier, and you know that. I mean, and now you've shared it with us, and wow, it's intense. It's crazy. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just getting really nuts out there. Jesus.
We're in it.
We're in it. Yep.
It's not 2100.
No, for sure.
Sorry they lied to us.
Yeah.
It's not even
Right.
2050. It's not
Nope.
No,
even
no, it's
2035.
it's right.
Nope.
It's today.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we good? All right.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much. This is officially the ending point for this particular session. And please come back if you, is there anyone who's not coming back to join us in half an hour?
I'll be there.
All right, great. It'll be the same link, and we'll see you at for us here on the West Coast, 10:30 a.m.
Yeah.
And have a lovely break. Thank you all so much.
Good. See you all soon.